Hello and welcome to the Story Engine podcast. My name is Kyle Gray, and today on the show we have Shannon Graham. Shannon is a world-class, world-changing coach who is now creating a product called LOOTBOX, a nutrition company to optimize gamers. We're going to learn about his vision in how he's creating something new and unique for gamers in the gaming space and what he is doing to meet them in a brand new way. We'll be creating a story for him that showcases how his whole life has led up to this unique moment and his vision for a better experience for gamers. Without any further ado, let's hand it over to Shannon Graham. Shannon Graham, welcome to the Story Engine podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you back on the show. You're one of the few guests who have made it back multiple times, and for good reason. But for those who don't know you yet, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you're showing up in the world today?
Well, my background is in leadership development, and I did that for just about 22 years, up until recently, where I launched a new project that is called LOOTBOX. And it is a nutrition performance brand specifically for gamers. And that's something that just kind of struck me as inspiration early last year. And that's my main kind of energy-rich focus these days.
Before we dive into the specifics of LOOTBOX, and I know this just because I've gotten to hang out in the room that you're in right now, you're somebody who believes a lot in the power of imagination and creativity and freedom and being yourself. And I know that that's made a big impact in how you've led in leadership development and beyond. Can you tell us a little bit about your philosophy with that and how it's ultimately led you to LOOTBOX right now?
Yeah. I think that for me, a lot of my life has been a journey of leaning into and expanding more and more my ability to not just imagine, but to trust that I can lean into that gift and it will serve me in a meaningful way. I think that imagination and creativity tend to kind of take a back seat in our culture compared to other things. And in reality, it tends to be one of the things that moves the needle the most, I find. And you can apply that to a lot of different things. Like imagination can apply to how to do something that's never been done before, from a business or impact perspective. It can also relate to any aspect of your life, really, like any area of your life that you are seeking to expand. Imagination can kind of play into that and be a vehicle for kind of living into more of what's possible for that.
Beautiful. And tell me a bit about like one of the things I can't remember exactly what you have a specific name for this room, but you've got all these G.I. Joe action figures. You've got things that really channel and evoke your inner child. And can you tell me the purpose of this place and like how it helps you and serves you?
Yeah, well, it's called the Hall of Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically my office that is kind of adorned with almost entirely 80s action figures. And originally, the idea was to kind of like buy back some of my childhood and bring that nostalgia back a little bit. And then as I started collecting, I realized, when I first started collecting, it was mostly to get the memories back. And then as I started collecting, I realized that there were certain figures or certain ones that I wanted but never had. And it was a little bit of this permission slip to be like, yeah, you can have those now. And, these are all kind of my heroes from growing up, everyone from He-Man to, G.I. Joe and um, just all of them. And they all kind of remind me that world of imagination and creativity is like where they all came from in the first place, and they all stood for something. They were all heroes in some way. They had some thing that they stood for. So the combination of those two is like this. I'm immersed in a reminder of that every day.
And now you are standing for LOOTBOX and a new product in nutrition for gamers in particular. Tell us a little bit about like what's exciting to you about that. How has your imagination and being able to help so many different leaders change the world, and how have you found your way to this particular product, and what makes it so exciting for you right now?
Yeah, there's a lot that makes it exciting. Over the last probably 10 to 15 years, my work from a leadership perspective mostly focused on working with people who were in the business of doing something from an impact perspective that had never been done before. So like moonshot level perspective, impact type stuff. And that was really fun because that required my imagination and my creativity in order to come up with ideas and strategies that had never existed before in order to make those dreams possible. Kind of by default, they could not achieve the moonshot level impact that they were created to make with something that already existed, a blueprint that already existed. So it required completely new and different type of thinking, which was cool. That utilized a lot of that creativity. It hit a wall at some points because I would have ideas that maybe just wouldn't get utilized, or that maybe were like a little too like ahead of their time or something like that. So every now and then there would be parts of what I brought to the table that didn't get implemented. And what I'm finding lately, one of the things that I'm really excited about with LOOTBOX is any and everything that I can think up, I can bring to the table, because I'm the CEO. So that part has been really fun, and just kind of challenging. Like I caught myself recently, so like there's been some brands that have inspired me with what they've been able to do from a growth perspective in a relatively short amount of time. So for example, like you have Poppy, which is a soda brand that sold for about $2 billion within, I think, about 36 months. And so like that's pretty impressive, and you have brands like AG1 that do 600 million a year. You have brands like IM8 that only just came out last year, and by the end of the year they were already doing over 100 million in reoccurring revenue. So that's really cool. And so that kind of like created a new roadmap of like, wow, this is the scope of what's possible for LOOTBOX. Let's kind of follow that. And that was a little bit of a trap, because as much as I'm inspired by the growth of those brands, there are certain things from a user experience standpoint, from a community standpoint, that they're just not doing, and I'm inspired to do with LOOTBOX. So it's been this two-part piece of like, I'm really inspired by what they've done from a scaling perspective, and there's room for me to own my own imagination and creativity when it comes to bringing certain aspects to the table that they might not have done. And so that is exciting for sure. And to kind of really help reshape the conversation and the narrative of the gaming space of what does it mean to have healthy performance-based nutrition as a gamer, because performance in gaming is more important than ever, with esports and tournaments, and streaming and Twitch and content and all of that stuff. Really playing well is important. Um, and and consumers are smarter than ever from a health perspective. Like, more people are eating organic, more people are paying attention to what's on the label, stuff like that. And these days people are waking up to, like, energy drinks and stuff like that. Many of them just are junk.
Mm-hmm.
And so creating a fuel, creating a nutritional option that can help optimize them and be healthy, is also super exciting.
You're touching on some of like the core problems or the systems that you're seeing where the marketplace or the world of gamers and who's marketing them and how they are, who's making stuff for them. I'm curious, like, it sounds like performance is more important than ever. And it's not just being able to succeed well or score the most points, but a lot of times with streaming and entertainment, it's how can I be a good personality and have energy and be clear minded? And most of the products out there that are marketing to them are just sugar and junk and maybe not very respectful of them. And you mentioned user experience and community and the narrative. What are some of the core problems that you think are facing gamers or the gaming space right now?
Well, there's a handful of them. The first is that I think that when it comes to any type of brand currently that caters to gamers from a nutrition standpoint, there really isn't much emphasis on, like, creating a tribe or a community.
Mm-hmm.
And again, from an ingredient standpoint, a lot of them are just kind of junk. Um, so there's definitely some challenges there. And I think it's a little bit of this, like, gamers are kind of a big community in a way. Like, most gamers are pretty cool with each other. When they go to, like, conferences or stuff like that, it's a pretty, like, tight knit community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to be able to have a brand that fosters that encourages that, is missing. There's not really a lot of brands that have an emphasis on that. Um, and Lootbox kind of also seeks to be like a performance partner, because I think the day of, like, having, so like, some of the challenges that gamers have is, like, if you're having, like, a lot of sugar, for example, in your energy drink, there's an inevitable crash that comes with that. If you have a lot of caffeine in your energy drink, there's a crash that comes with that, and even potentially some sleep disruption that comes from that. So right there's a whole host of challenges that happen, because that crash usually comes, like, even in the middle or somewhere at a kind of critical time in a gaming session, which is not ideal. And then if there's any type of sleep disruption, then you're not recovering your best, and that makes it just that much more challenging the next day. So yeah, I would say there's a lack of community. There's a lack of nutrition that truly caters to sustainable performance for gamers. Um, Yeah, a brand for gamers that truly makes them feel seen and cared for.
Yeah, a lot of these sugar things, it implies this somewhat limited picture of gaming these days where it doesn't have a lot of respect. It's just like, have more sugar, have more Mountain Dew,
Yeah,
and you're not doing anything productive or worthwhile or challenging.
yeah,
And I think that that's a big part of, like, when you say tribe and community, of people who are enjoying and having these conversations and sharing. And yeah, I think having something that regulates them and is like meant for their nutrition and their health is showing them and what they're doing a greater level of respect, which we see happening in many different ways, where even like colleges are having esports teams and giving away esports scholarships. So it's certainly
Yeah.
like out there and getting attention, but still most of the marketing is like Mountain Dew Baja Blast from Taco
Yeah.
Bell,
Yeah.
which
Yeah. And
is
and that's a large part of why Lootbox exists, because of that disparity. There's an ironic gap, and the gap is the demand for performance is higher than ever. The consumer is more oriented towards health and resonates with brands that they actually like identify with, and the majority of options for gamers is still like not that good overall. So you have this irony that's happening, and so it was relatively easy for me to pull back and see that at a macro level and go, wow, there's a gap there, and then there's no one really serving that. And if consciousness is expanding, which I believe that it is, then the demand for something like this will only continue to go up. The demand for gaming is inevitably only going to continue to go up. It's currently over 30% of the entire global population that identifies as some type of gamer. That number will be over 40% by 2030. So that's a lot of people. And that's a lot of opportunity for people to migrate to a product and a brand that truly serves them in a positive way.
so we've hinted at a few of the things that make it different. Community, product that really caters to their performance. You mentioned user experience. Is there anything else that you would want to highlight about user experience when it comes to what you're doing?
Yeah, one of the biggest highlights that I'm super excited about is we've decided to integrate an AI avatar into the experience. Her name is Nova, and Nova stands for Neural Optimizer Virtual Avatar. And she is this character essentially that, in a way, is like the face of the brand. And she, as soon as you sign up, she kind of becomes your companion in your journey of the loot box, what we're likely going to call the lootverse ecosphere. So she is going to exist in two ways. Number one, kind of as your personal um, companion to help ensure that you're utilizing the product correctly. Because a lot of the benefit that comes from the product comes from using it correctly. Um, and and the cool thing is that you have Cortana from Halo, um, you have Ghost from Destiny, you have I can't remember her name, but the narrator from Portal. So gamers are very familiar with this idea of AI avatars and AI companions. And then you stack that with just the state of AI today as it is, just in general, with GPT and Claude and everything else. Like everyone is chatting with GPT or some variation of it to a pretty high degree these days. And they're talking about everything from like getting personal feedback about their habits and their relationship and their business ideas and just all kinds of stuff. So that narrative is something that people are more and more comfortable with, and especially gamers. Gamers are especially keen to it because it's something that some of the most favorite games that they've ever played included. So Nova is going to be your personal companion along your journey to make sure that you're following the protocol, that everything is going well, helping you track performance, things like that. And so that'll be kind of her personal, experience with people. And then from a brand perspective, she's going to show up kind of in some of the marketing and advertising, but she's also going to host weekly challenges, for example, like gaming challenges for the community. So she's going to be kind of this community-wide persona, and you'll have this kind of personal relationship with her. And we're the first brand to do that. We're the first brand to include an AI avatar as a companion to help elevate the user experience.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to take this back to you. I want to ask you some questions about your own life and your own experiences as somebody who's been on the forefront of imagination, of creativity, of performance. I imagine that there's a lot that you resonate with in gamers, in playing games yourself, as well as just your own journey of imagination and creativity and leadership. I'm curious when when there were times where you felt like a lack of respect for your art and your craft and your vision and the real valuable things, or not feeling like you had a tribe or community of a place that you could go to feel seen and respected for probably the parts of you that were maybe labeled as nerdy or different, and maybe even looked down on by others for what really makes you powerful and giving the best results. When were moments in your own life that you had this same experience?
Well, the first one that comes to mind for sure is being a part of a number of different business masterminds, and kind of realizing that many masterminds, not all of them, but I would say most of them, cater to a specific type of person. And I wouldn't necessarily say that's a bad thing. I'd say that's probably a good thing. Um, it just so happened that I wasn't necessarily the right fit for that. I checked many of the boxes, and some of what I would probably consider would be the more important boxes I did not check. So while I was with kind of like-minded people from a business or entrepreneurial perspective, from an internal map of how I see the world and how I approach things, I didn't fit in, and so it felt like there was a gap there. And I remember, um, I remember I remember when I was young, and it was a Friday night, and I came home in the evening, and my mom was surprised because she figured that I was going to go out to some party, which, when you're a teenage kid on a Friday night, that's what you do. And I came home, and she was surprised, and she was asking me about why I was home, and I said, well, I think if I go to the party, I'm not going to really have a good time. And she said, then make your own. And I remember that. And I remember the empowerment that came from that. It was kind of like this difference that I sometimes talk about, which is like the difference between being a thermostat and a thermometer. Mm. Which is like a thermometer simply adjusts to the temperature of the room, whereas the thermostat sets the temperature of the room. And that moment, as simple as it was, I remember totally liberated me, because I was more like a thermostat in those early days, hoping that the party would be cool. Whether that was true or not depended on outside circumstances that were more or less out of my control. That statement totally shifted things for me to see it as like, no, I'm in control of that. So either A, if I think a party's lame, then I can make my own, and I can create it in a way that I think will be cool, and I can invite the people that I would want to be around. Or if I do go to a party, then I can set the pace. I can set the tone. I can do things there that I think will be fun and kind of be the catalyst for that. Um, there's been multiple times throughout my history of joining entrepreneurial masterminds and being kind of like, this doesn't feel like a fit for me, and then returning back to that mindset and being like, you know what, I'll just start my own. An example of that would be like the space mastermind that I created a few years ago. It was like nothing like that existed, but I thought that was cool and I thought that it should exist, so I made it. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the best examples I could give you.
Yeah. I think that's what we need. Shannon, would you like to hear your story?
I would love to.
I've spent my whole life not fitting in, and after many years I've learned it to be my strength, but there was a lot of time where I felt it was a weakness or something that made me not quite the right fit. I've spent many years being a part of many different business groups and masterminds, investing so much of my money, not just to learn new things and develop new things, but to be a part of a community, to be really seen, to be respected for who I was. And so many times in so many of the communities I thought I was in, while I checked many of the boxes that were expected, in many ways I wasn't the right fit. People didn't quite share my perspective or the way that I see the world, and didn't want to respect how I saw things. I can remember as a teenager one Friday night coming home one evening and my mom surprised and asking me, "Why aren't you going out to a party or something?" And I said, "I don't think I'm going to have a good time there." And she said, "Well, make your own." And I remember a certain kind of empowerment that came from that. And I felt that so many times in so many masterminds. And in so many ways, the greatest things are the things that I thought were the greatest parts about me: my imagination, my ability to tap into my inner child and my playfulness, the things that have helped me change the world with impact, create masterminds that bring people to space, were misunderstood or looked down upon. And I found it to be so ironic that that was the case. And now these days, I see the same irony happening to so many people, so many of my community that I share, gamers, in this realm of opportunity where gaming is one of the greatest potentials for both entertainment and opportunity out there. The ability to create a community for performance has never been higher, and still so many people don't respect or understand them. They market sugary products and caffeine that ends up giving you a little bit of an edge, but ending up making you crash. The way the messaging is put together leaves gamers feeling more lonely and more isolated and less respected and seen. And I decided I wanted to make something new. I wanted to create a community where people, gamers, could enjoy each other and connect. A product that caters to their real performance, their performance in their game, performance in streaming, performance in who they are. A place that would allow them to be seen and respected in that. And that's what I built inside of LOOTBOX. A place where we can have community together, a place where we can be fully energized and nourished in a way that allows us to compete, that allows us to have a better time, that allows us to showcase ourselves and who we are and be respected and seen and met in the same way with the video games that we love, by characters and software that allows us to ask questions and guide us through the quests of our own life. This product is new and beginning, but it's now starting to reach so many different gamers out there. And I'm hoping that you will join us in our community so that we can start creating this new future together.
Awesome. I love that, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. And I hope that there's some ways through sharing the story of this brand and this next evolution in your vision of going from changing the world with so many different people in so many different ways to really making a product that makes an impact for many people who don't feel seen and respected. And so It's been wonderful having you on the show today. And so, Shannon, do you have any closing thoughts for us today? And where can we go to learn more about you?
Yeah. I think really the bottom line is like there's something. I think there's a difference between what people really want to do and what they think they should do. And my encouragement would be to, even if it's scary, even if it's bold, even if it requires more courage than you have put forth before, to follow the thing that feels like that is what you really want to do. And good old Instagram, the Shannon Graham is where you can find me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Shannon, thank you so much for joining us today on the Story Engine podcast.
Thank you for having me.